It's time to make the baked B&G, starting with one andouille sausage. Cutting it into 1/4-inch slices and then removing the rind. And then you remove the rind on the slices. We're then going to cut each disc into 6 small pieces. When you're done with the andouille sausage, it should look something like this. For the next step, you'll need 1 sleeve hot sausage, 1 sleeve mild sausage. Does not need to be Bob Evans, does not need to be Jimmy Dean, just 1 hot, 1 mild. I like to work with a wooden spoon in a non-stick bowl, pan, pot. Next thing we're going to do is brown the sausage, add in the andouille, and then start working in some flour. We're going to cook the sausage over medium heat. We're not trying to brown it, get a crust, you just want to cook it evenly. So we're going to break it up as we cook it. So it's little bitty pieces. If you're out of the gun and trying to eat as soon as possible, when you start the sausage browning part, also turn on your oven to 350 to preheat for the biscuit. Okay, the sausage is close to being ready. Brown, still breaking it up a bit. At this point, you'll notice there is some grease. If you are a health-conscious person and are thinking about draining this grease, stop this video now and go make a quiche. You need this grease to make biscuits and gravy. You have to have this grease to bind with the flour so that the gravy doesn't taste like flour but tastes like sausage. Now we're going to add our andouille sausage. We painstakingly chopped up. Excuse the bad photography. I'm going to mix that in and let that cook alongside for a few minutes. Alright, now we're going to add the flour. That's all-purpose wheat flour. This is also not a gluten-free endeavor. Never really measured the amount of flour, but for those of you playing along at home today, I will attempt to actually measure how much flour I add to the sausage. So, just going to add in some flour. The important part is to mix the flour and make sure the gravy softens up the flour. So it's going to take a lot more flour than that. I'm going to go ahead. This was a whole cup to start with. We'll mix this in. We'll see how it looks in a minute. So it's starting to look thicker. I'm going to mix in a little more flour, another 1/2 cup. Alright, I took another 1/2 cup of flour. You can see how it's now thick. The flour is covering the meat. But there's no white. Everything's still brown, which means the grease has saturated the flour. Now we're going to start with the milk. Using a 1/2 gallon of vitamin D whole milk. The key is to put it in a little at a time. We're going to turn the heat down now. It was on medium at 5. We're going to go to a 4. start with some milk. The key to making a nice gravy that's not runny, nice and thick, is called patience. So we're going to take the half gallon of milk and pour in about a quarter to start. Stir that in. You'll see it's going to get thick really quickly. So we're going to add in some more milk right away. Maybe another quarter. Stir it in. Basically, you stir the milk in. So what it's going to do, the milk is going to break the flour away from the gravy. What you don't want to do is just have milk floating around with no purpose. So that's why you do it slowly. Eventually you're going to get to some very loose gravy. What you'll be doing essentially is reducing the milk by heat. So this gravy itself is way too thick. That's why we'll keep adding milk. And see, we're stirring it until it gets so thick that you can almost not stir it any longer. And we used almost all the milk. We have about a quarter left. But now the gravy is much looser. Now the stirring really begins. That last quarter cup of gravy will go in last quarter cup of milk. Okay, we've got the gravy is a pretty thick consistency. We're going to start moving into the rest of the milk. But first, we're going to add a little white pepper. Just a shake, 1 or 2 shakes. Work that in, and then start working in the rest of the milk. As you put in a little more milk and stir it, it's time to add the biscuits to the oven. Oh, I suggest honey butter and butter tasting biscuits. Alright, biscuits are in the oven. I set the timer for half the time. Halfway through, we're going to switch the biscuits where they are in the oven. So the ones that are in the top rack go on the bottom, bottom to the top. One thing you might not appreciate from this time-lapse video is the fact that anytime the gravy is on the stove, it's being stirred. So you have to be patient and always watch. You don't want to burn your gravy. You won't know until suddenly there are bits of flecks of black in it, and then, in my opinion, it'll be gross. I did that once. Never again. So keep slowly working in milk at this point. I'll just show you that at this point the milk, just a very little at a time, because it'll loosen the gravy up a bunch. Keep stirring it and it'll re-thicken. And that's it. That's John's B&G. Patience and lots of stirring. Good luck. So the gravy's done. Nice consistency. You can see if you can drop the gravy on top and it takes a minute to fall in, and it's good consistency. You're probably saying, wow, that's a lot of gravy, John. It is a lot of gravy. You probably get 30, 40 biscuits to eat all that gravy. So what I do is have the first serving for breakfast, save a little bit for Grant, who loves biscuits and gravy, have them during the week, and I freeze the rest. Freezes just fine. The thing you have to remember is when you reheat after freezing, you'll just need to add some more milk in to get it back to a nice consistency, as it'll dry out just a bit in the freezer. And I'll show you the finished breakfast product once the kids wake up. And the finished product, after a little under an hour's worth of work, I enjoy a little grape juice, and I have a cat watching, guarding my meal. Happy B&G, everybody.